Hello there, my friend. Thank you for dropping by. In this short presentation, I want to talk to you about education. Education is a massive subject. It influences our entire life. We can't really escape from it. Even if we're not educated, we will suffer the effects of the wrong education. And if you're a parent or a grandparent, or if you're thinking of having children, we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to our children to gain an understanding here. I think within the West, and particularly in the UK, we've become very lazy about education. We have the privilege of free education. It's in law. Children have to have access to education. But that has caused us, I believe, to drop our guard and to become a bit blasé and not think things through. So let's ask the question, what do we mean by education? What is the purpose? Who gets to decide what is the best for our children? Is it okay with you just to farm that out? You know, you drop your child off at school when they're 4 and say, I'll be back when you're 16, honey. Or should we think it through more? Should we be more involved? And what if you're a Christian? What if you're somebody who takes the kingdom of heaven very seriously? Do you take the commands of Jesus very seriously? Are these real in your life? Because if they are, then they're going to have implications here. And we need to think about these things, talk them through with those that we trust, and then come to a place where we can make informed decisions. Education, if you go online or flip open a dictionary, simply put, is the process of giving or receiving systematic instruction. Now, when you read that, it sounds very neutral, doesn't it? It sounds very benign. It's just a process. And that is true. But the next question we have to ask then, if education is a process, what is the philosophy that guides the process? And that's when it starts to get very, very serious. I do another presentation where I talk about people like Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin, who had very outspoken views on education. They understood how important it was. They understood the implications of influencing young minds and then progressing that on into adult life. Now, if they understood that, then we really need to. We mustn't leave this to chance. If we ask the government what it means, Nick Gibb, the schools minister in the UK, says this: education is the engine of our economy. It is the foundation of our culture, and it is an essential preparation for adult life. Delivering on our commitment to social justice requires us to place these 3 objectives at the heart of our education system. So Nick lays out these 3 main objectives, and he connects them to social justice. And I don't think any of us would argue with that or criticize him for that. But what we have to understand is these objectives then drive the policies that come from the purpose that they've defined. He said that education is the engine of our economy. It's the backbone of our culture, or he used the word foundation, didn't he? And then he talks about it's the essential preparation for adult life. So being able to take place and contribute economically, and then be positioned in the culture that the school educates the children with. The educational policies within all the schools across this land are geared to meet the criteria laid out by the school's minister. Again, no criticism, but I would ask this: what happens if we have a different criteria? What if we think that culture is something different? I don't think many of us would argue that we should contribute financially. I don't think any of us would argue that we want our children prepared to handle life in modern Britain, to be a member of society that contributes and is adds value, that, is a plus and not a minus, is a healer as opposed to one who brings pain and damage, one who restores rather than tears down. We agree with all that. But what about things when it comes to the lordship of Jesus? What about things when it comes to sexuality? What does the school culture say about that? And these are really crucial. You see, if the school culture is in disagreement, if it goes in a different direction to the culture of the home, to the culture of the church community, the children now are put in a place where they have to choose. Now, as an adult, God parachutes us into life and he says, stand up for what you believe. But let's be honest here. I hear parents sometimes say, I don't want to get involved in any other body of education because I want my children to be a witness. I want them to be a light. Now, that is laudable, and sorry if this feels a bit below the belt. It's not said to be cruel. But I know the vast majority of adult Christians are not a witness in any way, shape or form. They're like submarines. They surface on a Sunday at church time, lift their hands, say hallelujah, or open their hymn book and say amen. And then as they come up towards the church door, they submerge again and no one sees them till next Sunday at 11 o'clock. To then drop our children in an environment where we expect them to be a witness, I think at its best is unfair. At its worst, I would say it's downright hypocritical. Now, if we understand what's going on and we're happy for them to be in that environment, we believe that's congruent with what God is saying and what he's called us to do, brilliant. But I think for most people, that isn't the case. They don't actually understand what is really, really going on there. And to round this little presentation off, I want to just pick on this one thing. I want to pick on the neutrality myth. There is no such thing as a neutral education. It can never be in neutral. You see, some people say, those who influence, children shouldn't be taught religion in our schools. Okay, that's what you believe. And we say, well, we don't mind that because we will teach them that at home. We will train them in our faith, in what they should believe. Okay, but now they're going into an environment that by not affirming what you're saying is actually contradicting it. You see, when your child goes into a science lesson and if they put their hands up and says, oh, excuse me, I actually think that God is the force behind the universe, the chances are that will not be received well. If they then dare to challenge the status quo about evolution, about origins, or particularly in the area of morality, then they are going to start suffering some persecution. Things are not going to go well for them. So what often happens is they take on a double life and they live one way at school and another way at home. No prizes for guessing which way wins. Once they get to about 12, they've made their decision. They're grounded, they're anchored. And it's very, very difficult to alter the decision they've made. You see, another part of that myth is children should be allowed to make up their own minds about religion. Okay, again, you can't force faith on someone. They can give a mental assent. They can say what you want to hear, but you can't bring someone to a living faith in Jesus by force. That's ridiculous. We want our children to choose freely. But if we are baptizing them in an environment that doesn't allow them to do that, that doesn't allow them to follow that freely with joy and ease, we are again starting to put an unnecessary pressure on them that will compromise their faith. When you go into a situation that says, we do not teach this, you can almost guarantee that means there will be at least a subliminal opposition. Imagine if you had a Sunday school that taught that the universe started all by itself, that everything came from nothing, that the quantum vacuum, it designed and built itself. Would you send your children to that Sunday school? What if the Sunday school taught, hey, you know what, children, don't be worry about what your gender is, just because when you look at yourself in the mirror, you see male organs or you see female organs, you can choose your gender. Hey, children, did you know that you can marry a man or you can marry a woman? It's entirely up to you. It doesn't matter. You see that you would not send your children to that Sunday school. Why? Because they're getting a biased argument. They're not getting both sides. They're not being allowed to really choose. They're not being encouraged in critical thinking. They're not being shown the other side of the argument. Isn't that ironic? Because it's the very thing that we get accused of. So I want to encourage a conversation. I want to get people thinking. And I'm not saying you have to put your children in a Christian school, but I am saying you need to think about it. And if you're a pastor watching this, by all means, get in touch with me. You need to bring a curriculum into your church that actually brings the other side for the young people from what they are being brainwashed in, day out, so they can start to think critically and go, oh, hang on a minute. Oh, so there is another side to this. There is another angle on this. And if we can do that, I think we're going to be offering a great service to our children, and we are going to be fulfilling something of the Great Commission that Jesus has sent us to do, which is to make believers of all nations, but then to get them to walk after Jesus. He says, obeying my commands, operating a lifestyle in the here and now that agrees with the kingdom of heaven. Well, I want to thank you for watching. There will be more in the series, so keep your eye out. Go to our website, sign up, and I'll talk to you very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.